Alright guys, here we are back again, and we are going to read our story for this week, which is called The Mysterious Tadpole. This is by Stephen Kellogg. He did the writing and the pictures, and it says more than 25 years ago he first wrote and illustrated The Mysterious Tadpole. Then for the book's big anniversary, he published a new version with different illustrations and words. The new version is the one that you are about to read. So sometime if you want to go find his initial book that he wrote, you could see similarities and differences. This is a fantasy story, so this is not something that would ever happen in real life, which makes it fun to read. All right, so we are on page 386. All right. It says, "Greetings, nephew," cried Lewis's Uncle McAllister. "I've brought a wee bit of Scotland for your birthday." "Thanks," said Lewis. "Look, Mom and Dad, it's a tadpole." Lewis named him Alphonse and promised to take very good care of him. Lewis took Alphonse to school for show and tell. "Class, here we have a splendid example of a tadpole," exclaimed Miss Shelbert. "Let's ask Lewis to bring it back every week so we can watch it become a frog." Miss Shelbert was amazed to see how quickly Alphonse grew. "Maybe it's because he only eats cheeseburgers," said Lewis. When Alphonse became too big for his jar, Lewis moved him to the kitchen sink. "He's the perfect pet," said Lewis. Now, what would be a hint that this is a fantasy story on this page? Yeah, so he's eating cheeseburgers. We know tadpoles don't eat cheeseburgers. And the cool thing is, since he brought the tadpole to school, they're also learning about how tadpoles become a frog. So you can see in the picture, the illustrator, Stephen Kellogg, spent a lot of time making this poster in the classroom that shows the steps of how tadpole becomes a frog. So they are hoping that they can watch this little tadpole that he brought in grow just like the chart. But we know that's probably not going to happen. Lewis and Alphonse love to play games. "Be careful," Lewis said his mother. "The living room is not a soccer field. Something is going to get broken." And she was right. The same day, the soccer ball slammed into Aunt Tabitha's antique lamp. "The tadpole is out of control," said Lewis's mother. "Something must be done." "It won't happen again," promised Lewis. "I'll take Alphonse to obedience school." Sorry, I keep moving my phone. I'm reading on my computer and it keeps slipping. So a couple words we need to talk about. Antique. Okay, that means something really old. Maybe it's been passed down from a grandma or a grandpa. It would be something that you couldn't just go to the store and buy. And then they told him to take Alphonse to obedience school to learn how to behave. The only animals at the obedience school were dogs. Some of their owners stared at Alphonse suspiciously. "Pretend you're a dog," whispered Lewis. Alphonse tried to bark, but it sounded more like a burp. And we can see in the picture, he's trying to pretend a dog. He's on his all four legs, but he doesn't really look like any dog I've seen before. "Hold on a minute," said the trainer. "What kind of dog is that?" "He's a hairless spotted water spaniel from Scotland," explained Lewis. Alphonse quickly learned to sit, stay, and retrieve. He graduated at the top of his class. "My parents will be very pleased," said Lewis. So even though everybody was kind of suspicious that he was there, he ended up doing really well at obedience school. But Lewis's parents were not pleased when Alphonse outgrew the sink and had to be moved to the bathtub. "This shower is too crowded," complained Lewis's father. "This bathroom is a mess," moaned Lewis's mother. And what's he eating in the bathtub? Cheeseburgers again. At least Lewis's classmates enjoyed Alphonse, who was still making weekly visits. "Wow, show and tell is more fun than recess," they yelled. But one day, Miss Shelbert decided that Alphonse was not turning into an ordinary frog. She asked Lewis to stop bringing him to school. And you can still see that poster in the background. He doesn't look anything like what he was supposed to turn into. He's so big that all of the kids can play on him. By the time summer vacation arrived, Alphonse had outgrown the bathtub. "We could buy the parking lot next door and build him a swimming pool," suggested Lewis. "Be sensible," declared Lewis's parents. Swimming pools are expensive. We're sorry, Lewis, but this situation has become impossible. Tomorrow you will have to take your tadpole to the zoo. But I can't put my friend in a cage, cried Lewis. So he had seen the sign that said they were selling this area and he wanted to build a swimming pool, but his parents said way too much money. So even though it might have been a good idea, they couldn't afford it. That night, Lewis was very sad until he remembered that the gym in his nearby high school had a swimming pool. Lewis hid Alphonse under a carpet and smuggled him inside. That means he kind of snuck him in. Nobody used this place during the summer, whispered Lewis. You'll be safe here. After making sure that Alphonse felt at home, Lewis said goodbye. I'll be back tomorrow with a big pile of cheeseburgers, he promised. Lewis came every afternoon to play with Alphonse. In the mornings, he earned the money for the cheeseburgers by delivering newspapers. The training continued as well. Lewis would say, Alphonse retrieve, and Alphonse would succeed every time. As summer vacation passed, Lewis became more and more worried about what would happen to Alphonse when high school kids returned. So he doesn't need his parents to know he's there. He's making money delivering newspapers, and then he uses that money to buy cheeseburgers, of course, for Alphonse. So nobody knows that he's not at the zoo. After his first day of classes, Lewis ran to the high school and found the gym bustling with activity. The swim team was headed for the pool. Stop, cried Lewis. On your mark, bellowed the coach. Get set. Excuse me, sir, said Lewis. Go, roared the coach. Alphonse rose to the surface to welcome the swimmers. It's a submarine from another planet, shrieked the coach. Call the police, call the Navy. No, it's only a tadpole, said Lewis. He's my pet. The coach was upset and confused. You have until tomorrow, he cried, to get that creature out of the pool. So, coach was very mad, but it could have been a lot worse. He just told him he had kind of a day to get rid of him. Lewis telephoned his friend Miss Severs, the librarian, and asked her for her help. Miss Severs rushed to meet Lewis at the high school. When she saw Alphonse, she was so startled that she dropped her purse into the water. Retrieve, said Lewis, and Alphonse did. Where did this astounding animal come from? cried Miss Severs. It was a birthday gift from my uncle, Lewis replied. Miss Severs telephoned Uncle McAllister. Oh, the wee tadpole, he said. Why, he came from a lake nearby. It's the one folks call Loch Ness. Brace yourself, Lewis, Miss Severs said. I believe your uncle has found the Loch Ness monster. I don't care, cried Lewis. Alphonse is my friend, and I love him. He pleaded with Miss Severs to help him raise enough money to buy the parking lot so he could build a big swimming pool for Alphonse. And you can see Miss Severs showing him a newspaper article that talks about the Loch Ness monster. Suddenly, Miss Severs had an idea. Long ago, a pirate ship sank in the harbor, she said. No one has ever been able to find it, or its treasure chest, but perhaps we can. The next morning, they dove into the harbor and rented a boat, or drove to the harbor and rented a boat. This is a treasure chest, cried Lewis. Retrieve. So remember, he's been practicing retrieving in the pool, so Lewis thinks he might be able to retrieve the treasure. Alphonse disappeared under the water and returned with a chest. It was filled with gold and jewels. Let's buy the parking lot and get to work, cried Miss Severs. And you can see in the other picture it says, beavers beware. And you can see the boat was being overtaken by these beavers that like to eat wood, which is what caused the ship to sink. Lewis's parents were shocked to see a construction crew in the parking lot. Lewis, they cried, what in the world is going on here? Alphonse found a pirate treasure ship, exclaimed Lewis, and we used part of our gold to buy you this present. Lewis's parents were shocked once again. Tickets for a vacation cruise to Hawaii, they gasped. And, said Lewis, you don't have to worry about us because Granny has agreed to babysit. They hugged Lewis and kissed Alphonse. How soon can we leave? They cried. Immediately, said Lewis. So with part of the money, they were going to build the swimming pool for Alphonse, but he also bought his parents a trip so they would be out of the way and they wouldn't be too upset about everything. By the time Lewis's parents returned, the swimming pool was being enjoyed by everyone in the city. A week later, Lewis said, "Alphonse, tomorrow is my birthday, which means that you've been my best friend for a whole year." The next day, Uncle McAllister arrived for the party. "Greetings, Lewis, my lad," he exclaimed. "I've come with a curious stone from the hills of Scotland. Happy birthday." "Wow, thanks," said Lewis, and suddenly the stone began to tremble and crack. And we can see there's another animal coming out of this stone, which tells us that maybe another unique animal might be coming from his gift he got from his uncle. So kind of a fun, just imaginary story. And then I will have another video on of our short story that goes along with this later. All right, thanks.